After more than a year of closures, movie theaters are reopening, and there's a full slate of summer blockbusters on tap. Plus, more than 20 Broadway shows have announced new performance dates as the Great White Way gets ready to restart this September. For more, we turn to an expert on all things New York and all things entertainment. Michael Musto is a journalist and commentator. Michael, I actually want to start off book with the return of the Village Voice and your return to it. As someone who grew up in the New York City suburbs and found what I can only describe as a previously unknown world within its pages, I could not be more pleased with its return and your return. Did you ever think you'd be able to go back home again?
No, but it does seem to be in my lifeblood. I can't seem to quit that place, and it's wonderful. It's always been my home base. My column, La Dolce Musto, started in 1984, lasted for about 29 years. They brought me back with a new owner after I was laid off. It just keeps coming back. It's now back as a quarterly print publication as well as an ongoing website. And I was in the first print publication of the new Village Voice, which premiered last month. And it's very Village Voicey. It really feels like the old days.
It is as New York as Times Square or a Nathan's hot dog. But we didn't book you to talk about The Voice. We wanted to talk about summer entertainment. Let's talk summer movies. As a fellow Broadway lover, In the Heights is the one that I'm most looking forward to. I'm curious what you're hearing about it and how faithful to the Broadway version it's going to be.
It's getting very good buzz, and it's pretty faithful, apparently. Of course, it's the Lin-Manuel Miranda musical that was a hit on Broadway, and it's about Dominican-American people in Washington Heights, Manhattan, way uptown, and it's about a bodega owner who inherits a fortune from his abuela, his grandmother. It's a spirited, upbeat musical. I hear it's faithful, but obviously opened up. It's a movie. It's not Broadway. Lots of dancing in the street. It's sort of like West Side Story, which is also coming back, but with nicer people, I think.
Nothing wrong about singing about New York, especially uptown in Manhattan. I want to ask you about A Quiet Place Part 2, which is also due this summer. The original was something of a surprise hit, but sequels are tricky. How much enthusiasm do you have for this one?
I think it's been enough time since the first one, because of the constant COVID lockdown postponements, that there is a built-in hunger to see this again. I don't want to see it in a theater because people will talk during it, and you don't want talking during A Quiet Place Part 2. But I will see it in a theater because that's the way they want it. And of course, John Krasinski, the director, and his wife in real life, Emily Blunt, they're back on screen, and it's about the Abbott family once again running from these creatures with very fine hearing.
Yeah, if only we could turn part of our politics into A Quiet Place Part 2. It would certainly make my life a lot easier. Other movies that are coming this summer include Black Widow and Cruella. I admit I am not in the loop on either of them. What do I need to know?
Black Widow, of course, is opening on July 9th. It's one of those Marvel movies. Scarlett Johansson reprises her role of Natasha Romanoff, the ex-KGB assassin, and it picks up where Captain America Civil War, where that left off, and Natasha is on the run, and it's Rachel Weisz is in it, as well as Florence Pugh, who was in Little Women. She was Academy Award nominated. So it seems like a pretty A-list Marvel film. It's a guaranteed box office smash. And then, of course, Cruella has Emma Stone as Cruella de Vil, who we originally saw in an animated film. Then it was live action with Glenn Close. Then it was a sequel. Now this is sort of like a prequel, where it's how did Cruella become so mean? How did this fashion designer develop a taste for the hides of Dalmatian dogs? And her antagonist is a baroness played by the other Emma Thompson. I think it looks pretty good. I mean, to me, Glenn Close is the ultimate Cruella, but Emma Stone is certainly capable.
I'm with you on the Marvel movies. Sometimes I feel like I need a flow chart to keep all of the characters and the stories in order, but they seem to be sticking pretty tightly to the universe they've built.
They pretty much control Hollywood, let's face it.
Yeah.
They recycle the same superheroes in different costumes, and it always makes a lot of money. I tend to avoid them, but I know there's a taste for them.
You touched on this, Michael, when you were talking about A Quiet Place Part 2, about where people are going to see these movies. How hard do you think Hollywood's going to be pushing for a return to theaters? And do you think the big hits of the summer will also be available to stream just as they were through the pandemic?
A lot of them will be available on streaming networks. There's a movie called Woman in the Window opening tomorrow on Netflix. Obviously, Netflix is still going to be very viable as a source, as well as other streaming services. But a lot of the studios really want you to go out into the movie theaters and see it. get vaccinated again, and go to the theater. And I know one critic who requested a screening link of a big movie coming out, and they said, no, we want you to see it at a screening on a big screen. That's the bent now. Let's get back to semi-normal. And of course, all of these movies for the summer tend to be either sequels, prequels, familiar titles, things that the public wants to just kind of lose their mind at the door. So it is the kind of experience where you're going to want to get your popcorn, get your soda, sit with the public within the safe precautions and the new rules. But let's get back to movie theaters. I know I'm itching to go there.
Wanted to ask you about the Golden Globes. NBC just announced they're not going to broadcast next year because of serious problems with the Hollywood Foreign Press Association. Those problems, though, Michael, aren't exactly new. Why did NBC act now, and what's your reaction to NBC's decision not to air them?
I think it was a great decision. Somebody said, well, give the Golden Globes time. Well, the Golden Globes have been around for 77 years. The head of the Golden Globes, who just stepped down because he put a racist tweet about Black Lives Matter being a terrorist organization, which he then took down, he was a big problem. The fact that there's zero diversity in the organization and the voting is ridiculous. And this year, I thought, there had to be more shady stuff going on than usual, because usually they predict at least 2 or 3 out of the 4 acting Oscars. This year, they only predicted 1, supporting actor Daniel Kaluuya. So there was something a little fishy about the way they choose their winners. So whatever credibility they had built up from the year when Pia Zadora won Best Newcomer has been shattered. And I think it's a great time for NBC to say, get your stuff together, folks, get diversity, get credibility, and then maybe we'll take you back.
I did not expect a Pia Zadora reference to pop up during this interview, Michael. Thank you.
And speaking of our beloved Glenn Close, Pia Zadora beat Glenn Close for the award.
One of these days, Michael, you and I are going to run into each other at a Broadway theater. Broadway is coming back in September. I know you're a big fan. I am as well. Most of the big hits have announced their reopenings, but the theater needs at least 80% of seats to be filled and probably more to sustain. And I don't know if that's going to happen. How do you think Broadway responds, and do you see it rebounding to where it was before COVID?
Well, I noticed that Mayor de Blasio and Governor Cuomo both said different things about when New York could reopen, but they were way before the fall. Broadway waited till the fall. They're waiting till September to start performances again. And I think that's a good time to start it again. And I think people are hungry to be back in a Broadway theater as well as a movie theater. And there are going to be approximately 30 shows opening by the end of the year. Some of them are reopening. Some of them are shows that were kind of in previews, or they were already opened and they had to pull the plug, and now they're back. They're getting back in shape. They're relearning their lines. I think a lot of them are going to do over 80% because people are going to start coming back to New York. It's the place to be. It's the place to reignite your excitement for life. It's the place for culture. And I don't think you're going to see a lot of empty seats for a lot of these shows. Yeah, even if Cats comes back.
Well, slow down. Let's hope Cats doesn't come back. Finally, Michael, this is definitely more your bailiwick than mine. New York City nightlife. If I've learned anything about nightlife in the city, and that is certainly questionable, it's that it's like money in politics. It will always find a way to get there. Or will it? Will nightlife in the city be back to where it was, you think?
I'm always bad at predicting, but I'm seriously predicting this time a return to the roaring 20s. People are itching for up in your face, up in your grill, social interaction again. And we have so many, sadly enough, empty spaces in Manhattan that I think people are going to take them over and turn them into dance clubs and lounges and all kinds of night spots. I already know of 2 gay clubs that are opening in Hell's Kitchen in the fall that weren't there before. So even though there's some detritus and some places had to shutter, there's going to be a renewed explosion of nightlife. And I'm excited because all the dance clubs and everything had moved to Brooklyn, which is fine. I'm from Brooklyn. It does count. But I live in Manhattan and I want stuff at my doorstep. And I think it's going to be real fun again. I think it's going to be a lot of dancing, drinking, in my case, diet soda. But there's going to be reason to celebrate again. And there are going to be places to celebrate at.
And hopefully that's the only itching that comes from New York City nightlife. I apologize. I couldn't resist. Well,
if Cats comes back, I am allergic. I am allergic.
Scratching and itching. Entertainment reporter and Village Voice Phoenix, Michael Musto. Michael, it's great talking to you. As always, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
We'll be back to wrap up RFL for the week right after this.